Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to share with you the findings of how Arizona has performed in biosciences development over the past 2 years. To help monitor progress of the Arizona Biosciences Roadmap, TEConomy Partners was engaged to provide an independent assessment of progress every 2 years. And it should be noted that TEConomy principals were involved in the preparation of the 2002 Roadmap report while at Battelle. The roadmap has evolved over time. With support from the Flinn Foundation, an updated roadmap was developed in 2014 to build upon the accomplishments of the original 2002 roadmap. This 2014 update sets out a bold vision for Arizona in the biosciences. It recognizes the opportunity for Arizona to be globally competitive and a national leader in specific areas of the biosciences, such as precision medicine, diagnostics, bioengineering, and other areas of core competencies in the biosciences found in Arizona. But to succeed, the 2014 update really brings forward a renewed focus on establishing an ecosystem that offers a high-value environment for biosciences development to take place. And that includes ensuring access to talent, entrepreneurial businesses, and a high-functioning translational research capacity, building upon the clinical excellence found across the state. Now let's turn to the 2020 performance review. Let me say at the outset, it's an outstanding report card, one that Arizona should take great pride in. Progress has been made across nearly every performance metric. Most notably, growth in both biosciences industry and university research has outpaced the nation. This success points to the importance of Arizona renewing both the Technology and Research Initiative Fund, or what is commonly referred to as TRIF, and the Angel Investment Tax Credit. The first set of performance measures we want to start with are the bottom line economic development measures of success found in jobs, wages, and regional growth. This requires us to step back and understand the diverse set of industries that comprise the biosciences for the Arizona Roadmap. We start with building upon the non-clinical bioscience industries as defined by the Biotechnology Innovation Organization, a group known as BIO, which TEConomy works with to track state-by-state bioscience development trends every 2 years. This set of non-clinical bioscience industries include a wide range of industry activities from services to manufacturing to distribution. And it also includes a range of markets from ag bio to medical devices to drugs and pharmaceuticals, as well as supportive research testing and medical labs that are critical to advancing and deploying biosciences innovations. But for Arizona, the definition of biosciences would not be complete without also considering its network of hospital systems, which are so integral in overall biosciences development in the state. It's through this network of hospital systems that clinical excellence is advanced that can generate ideas for innovations. Clinical trials activities can be undertaken to test new innovations, and broader research efforts are conducted, including nearly $32 million of NIH research funding in 2019. This definition of the biosciences in Arizona translates into 77% of the jobs in the biosciences being found in hospitals and 23% in non-hospital industries, of which biosciences distribution, research testing in medical labs, and medical devices are the largest segments. Turning to the long-term employment trends in biosciences employment, it's quite notable that biosciences employment growth in Arizona has been leading the U.S. year after year since the start of the roadmap effort dating back to 2002. For the overall period of 2002 to 2018, while the U.S. grew by 20%, as shown in the graphic here, Arizona grew by 70%, quite a big difference. And in the last 2 years, the U.S. grew 3.6% in biosciences, while Arizona far outstripped it by growing by 8.3%, so more than 2 times the growth found nationally. Even in the context of Arizona's generally high-growth economy, biosciences job growth really stands out. This graphic here compares biosciences job growth to total private sector industry growth in Arizona. Since 2002, Arizona private sector industries have grown by 30%. Again, this falls far short of the 70% that biosciences has grown. While in the early years of the roadmap, what the graphic is showing is that biosciences and total private sector industry growth generally track together. But then in 2007, the biosciences really took off, in part because it didn't have a problem in the recession and it just continued to outpace overall private sector growth even in the economic recovery years. So in the last 2 years, while Arizona's private sector industries have grown overall by 6.2%, the biosciences have now grown by 8.3%. So a 2 percentage point advantage for the biosciences industry sector compared to all industries in Arizona. The sustained growth of biosciences jobs in Arizona is quite remarkable. This chart here is showing how employment breaks out across each stage of the business cycle since 2002. And what you can see here is that in terms of total biosciences, Arizona has not only outgrown U.S. biosciences growth at every stage of the business cycle going back to 2002, but it's also outgrown total private sector industry growth in Arizona at every stage of the business cycle. And if you look at the bottom row here in terms of non-hospital biosciences, Arizona's performance is really outstanding. Even in the recession years of 2007 to 2009, Arizona's non-hospital bioscience industries grew by 6%, even as the nation declined by 1%. And in the most recent economic expansion since 2009 through 2018, the growth has just been phenomenal, nearly 49% in Arizona in non-hospital biosciences compared to just 18% for the country. And in the most recent 2-year period in that non-hospital biosciences growth, it's been 15% growth in Arizona compared to 7.2%. But just stepping back for a moment in terms of the current economic uncertainties, I think what particularly the recession years are showing for Arizona is the great resiliency that this industry has to sustain growth. And that could be quite encouraging and a really important buffer for economic uncertain times ahead of us. Another way to consider the success of Arizona since the beginning of the roadmap effort back in 2002 is the gains that Arizona has been making in its share of national biosciences employment. These gains in the national share indicate the growing competitiveness of Arizona in bioscience industry development. A close look at this chart reveals that between 2002 and 2018, every industry subsector of the biosciences industry in Arizona is increasing its share of total U.S. jobs. Notable are the large gains in the share of national employment in drugs and pharmaceuticals, as well as medical devices in Arizona. These are two key manufacturing industries in biosciences that generate very high economic multipliers and so can have really significant impacts across the economy in Arizona. Arizona is now closing in on the national average in total biosciences employment concentration, or what economists call location quotient, as measured in that last column. And that's a measure of specialization of an industry in a particular state. And among the subsectors that Arizona is close to reaching that U.S. average, where you would have a measure of 1. So if you see total biosciences, Arizona is now at 0.93, and in distribution 0.95, in medical devices 0.94, and in hospitals nearly equal to the U.S. at 0.97. What that's suggesting is that Arizona is reaching a very significant milestone of raising itself so that it's equal to the U.S. And then we could see if the sustained growth of Arizona that's been realized since 2002, very soon Arizona will actually exceed the U.S. In its level of industry concentration and become specialized in the biosciences. This strong job growth found in the biosciences is also being replicated in terms of strong growth of wages in the biosciences in Arizona compared to the nation in biosciences, as well as compared to the statewide average growth of all private sector industries. And you can see this by the chart on the right, where you can see the percentage changes each year, and very strong growth in Arizona in wages. But what really stands out about the wages and the bottom line of why the biosciences development matters is the high quality of jobs it generates and the high wages for Arizona in the biosciences compared to the total private sector. And keep in mind that these are not just jobs for doctors and PhDs, but nurses, manufacturing workers, lab technicians, and distribution and logistic workers. So quite a broad spectrum of skills that are found in the life sciences. Biosciences is also a leading industry driver across the regions of Arizona, as shown here in the chart. And what's interesting is that the mix of industries really does vary across the regions, though the one in common really is that hospitals, which are a key foundation in each region. Now let's go ahead and take a closer look at each region. In Flagstaff, the biosciences industry is highly specialized in two key subsectors: medical devices led by Gore and hospitals. This makes biosciences industry development a very important regional industry driver overall for the Flagstaff region. In Phoenix, we see a more varied base of biosciences activities taking place than in Flagstaff. And the one sector that really stands out is bioscience-related distribution, where already the Phoenix region stands 10% above the national average in terms of its location quotient, that measure of specialization. But we also want to point out that in addition to really strong growth in research testing and medical labs over the years, as well as in the hospital base that exists in Phoenix, what we're seeing in drugs and pharmaceuticals is really extraordinary growth. And this growth of nearly 240% since 2002 is continuing in recent years. So it grew by another 1,000 jobs from 2000 to over 3,000 in just the most recent period. And that actually is most of the growth across the state in drugs and pharmaceuticals. So we really see something special happening here for Phoenix and something to watch in the years to come. In Tucson, meanwhile, we see a real level of specialization of 1.36 or 36% above the national employment concentration in the hospital sector. And that reflects the mix of hospitals in the region, including the state's leading academic medical center. Other key industries of research testing and medical labs, as well as medical devices, have had healthy growth over the years dating back to 2002. But to have the bottom line success in economic development measures of jobs, wages, and regional growth in the biosciences really requires having a high-functioning innovation ecosystem. More than other advanced industries, the biosciences really depends upon basic research discoveries that are then commercialized into new products in terms of therapeutics and drugs and medical devices. And often this takes place through new startup firms, but even existing firms really do devote a lot more to R&D than other industries. So let's now take a look at how that innovation ecosystem across research, commercialization, and new venture development is doing in Arizona. First, in overall academic biosciences research trends over the years dating back to 2002, which this graphic is showing, what you can see is a little unevenness. In the early period from 2002 to about 2008, 2009, Arizona kind of grew with the country in terms of bioscience academic R&D. But then there was a slowdown between 2009 and 2015. And now what we're seeing since 2015 is a really nice rebound to the point where Arizona has caught back up to the overall growth of bioscience academic R&D dating back over the period of 2002 to 2018. A closer look at biosciences R&D across Arizona's universities finds that each of them have been making really strong gains, particularly in the past 2 years, from 2016 to 2018, well outpacing the country. So this is something that's broadly shared across the universities, and something that is really notable. And this strong academic research growth in the biosciences is being mirrored in the gold standard of bioscience research funding, the highly competitive funding that comes from the National Institutes of Health. After falling behind the growth trends, as seen in this graphic, Arizona in recent years, starting from 2015, has really begun to outpace the national growth. And so over the entire period now, from 2002 through 2019, we're able to get a little bit more current data here. What you're seeing is Arizona is actually now outstripping the US growth over that entire period. So what this translates in terms of overall NIH support is that in 2019, Arizona has now realized its highest levels in its share of National Institutes of Health NIH funding recorded since the roadmap began in 2002. And this high share is found both in awards as well as in funding. So quite an outstanding performance. And it's always important to note for Arizona that, and to keep in mind that while the universities really do generate the lion's share of NIH funding, Arizona's hospitals and companies are also important recipients. And for the companies, this often involves small business innovation research awards from NIH that are really critical sources for commercialization funding of new treatments and technologies. A particularly important driver of commercialization for the biosciences, given the importance of university research discoveries in innovation, is the activities of university technology transfer. Arizona in the 2018 to 2019 period continues to generate significant levels of technology transfer activities in the biosciences. And this includes 129 licenses executed, as well as 32 new bioscience startups from university intellectual property. But stepping back over all the measures, the picture is a bit more mixed. While patents are up and licenses and startups are holding up against prior levels, disclosures are slightly down, and licensing income has fallen more significantly. I don't want us, though, to make too much of a point of this licensing income, because it's not a perfect measure of success. Many times, the biggest wins in licensing income come from startups that take years to be realized. And so often, instead of going for quick income, by going and focusing on startups, university technology transfer is sacrificing short-term gains. And that's nothing overall from these measures to keep us up at night. But again, it's something compared to a really outstanding report card across all the other metrics that it just deserves some attention, and potentially there are ways to provide more resources to continue to advance technology transfer. But this is definitely an area in this report card that is more mixed. Now turning to venture capital, which is important because it enables innovations in the biosciences to be commercialized as products to help patients and to help startup firms really scale up and generate jobs. In recent years, this has been an area of concern for Arizona, but I'm really pleased to report that 2019 was a banner year where the level of venture capital investments reached new highs of nearly $200 million for the year. And this was not just one event that took place, but this is spread across a lot of firms in the state. So this is a very positive sign, but again, it's 1 year, so it needs to be closely monitored in the years to follow. The strong gains in venture capital in 2019 now puts Arizona ahead of some key peer states such as Texas and Florida in its share of venture capital funding relative to NIH funding. So kind of a way to normalize and be able to compare how effective venture capital is relative to the research base. Again, a key goal to keep in mind is really reaching that U.S. average, and there's a little ways to go, but 2019 really has put Arizona back on the map in this. It's also important to recognize that venture capital is very much concentrated, and so it's a difficult measure to really succeed in relative to the two large states of Massachusetts and California that tend to dominate in this area. What is encouraging for Arizona is that it is standing out compared to the nation in its share of deals at the earliest stages of new venture development, pre-seed and angel investment. And most impressively, the share of angel investment deals is more than double the U.S. average and shows the importance of replenishing the state's angel investment tax credit that took place in 2017. Finally, the mix of biosciences technologies being funded through venture capital in Arizona compared to the country really provides a window into future growth opportunities. Venture capital investments really stand out in biosciences, IT, and medical devices in Arizona, well exceeding the national share of venture capital investments in the biosciences. And biosciences IT is especially interesting for Arizona since it increasingly is connected to healthcare innovations around the use of health analytics and promoting population health management. So it really is an area where the strength of Arizona's hospital systems can offer a platform for identifying innovation needs as well as first customers. Both the medical device as well as the bio IT sectors offers another advantage for Arizona because it's a pathway to generating and scaling up new companies that requires fewer dollars than biotechnology or pharmaceuticals. So bringing together now all of the metrics, we can now see the strong report card earned by Arizona in the biosciences development. In terms of measures of economic development performance of jobs and wages, what we're seeing is just outstanding performance, where Arizona has truly outpaced the country and growing in very broad ways. And that's something that really reflects the long-term commitment that's been taking place, and so is something to tout to others in the economic development community. At the same time, in the innovation ecosystem metrics of success, we again are showing really good performance. The university's R&D efforts have really turned around, and we're seeing broad growth across the universities in biosciences R&D. NIH funding is on a very strong growth trajectory. We had a great year in venture capital in 2019 for Arizona. And while not a blemish by any means, mixed performance in the bio university technology transfer activities. And so again, something to keep track of, but nothing to be worried about. And ultimately, what we're seeing for Arizona is real success in its biosciences development. With that, I am open for questions and really appreciate the opportunity. And it's always something special to be able to deliver such great news about growth in a key sector that people have been working a long time to advance. And all that long-term effort looks like it's paying off.